Recorded on Wednesday, January 23rd, this is your Daily Detroit. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Sven Gustafson. It's like the city is one giant slushie today.
What flavor?
It's kind of like a dismal Sunday of sludge and road runoff, kind of like death defrosted. It's awful outside.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Milo Digital. Milo Digital is a full-service digital marketing agency that engineers quality results through data and innovative strategies. Learn more at milodetroit.com.
Michigan is now dead last among states for total public education revenue growth over the past 25 years. That's the gist of a new study from Michigan State University's College of Education. It looks at the effects of Proposal A, a 1994 law that shifted school funding from local property taxes to state property taxes and restricted the ability of citizens to determine the level of funding for their local public schools. When adjusted for inflation, the report authors find that total revenue for Michigan schools has dropped by 30% since 2002, much of it due to declining state funding. Michigan also ranks at the bottom for reading and math proficiency. The report also found that in 2015, education funding in Michigan was only 82% of what it was in 1995 after adjusting for inflation. That's worse than any other state.
Sven, did they talk about how this happened?
The authors say Proposal A devoted little attention to the extra costs for educating students with special needs, and it notes that Michigan has seen a significant increase in the number of at-risk students over time, while funding for special needs students has dropped.
Do they offer any suggestions, remedies, ways to handle this?
Well, the report adds to a growing list of policy recommendations for how to improve school funding and educational outcomes in the state. The MSU report authors endorse bipartisan calls to boost minimum per pupil funding in Michigan to around $9,500 and factor in funding weights for students living in poverty, special education needs students, and pupils who are just learning how to speak English. They also call for universal preschool for all 4-year-olds and all at-risk 3-year-olds.
So bottom line, how much are we looking at to fund this properly?
Well, they're benchmarking a report issued last year by a statewide group of business and education leaders called the Michigan School Finance Research Collaborative. And all told, the authors say the state would need to increase current education funding by around $3.6 billion to implement their recommendations.
And that's $3.6 billion a year?
Correct.
Wow. Last year, we had an interview all about Michigan's K-12 education woes with Ron French of Bridge Magazine. It was a good piece, although slightly depressing. We'll include a link to that in the show notes. The campus around the Detroit Institute of Arts is in for some changes. What exactly those changes are? Well, that's where you come in. Today, 3 design firms, and I apologize ahead of time if I bungle a pronunciation here, Agence Terre from Paris, 10x10 from Minneapolis, and Mick Young Kim Design from Boston made presentations. I'll note here that each firm has a part of the project that would go to local designers. Those presentations included ideas like a new hotel, closing some streets for pedestrians, an amphitheater, and a fog garden.
What's a fog garden?
So I'm not exactly sure when it comes to this project, but it's really a trendy thing to put fog in landscaping design nowadays. I guess there's custom systems you can get to have fog on demand, like just push a button. I must say, though, it would seem pretty cool to walk through on a hot summer day.
Sounds far out. You mentioned street closures among some of the possible plans. Those are kind of busy streets around there, aren't they?
Well, I'll add a little color here as I used to live right around the corner from the DIA. You know, during rush hour, Brush is crazy busy with commuters coming in, and John R. the other way. It's just packed with folks going to the medical center. But the other streets, yeah, they can get busy, but they mostly serve as street parking lots, and they're kind of dead. So I could see why a designer might want to make them more pedestrian-oriented.
Any word on dollar figures, to put behind this initiative?
Well, I'll start out by saying, according to everyone involved, there will be no taxpayer dollars. The tab's going to be picked up by foundations and private groups, and they're looking at a pretty steep total, between 75 and 85 million bucks.
And what's the timeline for this?
Well, it's short. They're going to make a decision this spring, so you got to get your word in. All three plans are going to be down at the DIA for viewing and for comment for you to check out. And, I got a note here. There have been talks about changing this part of Midtown, the cultural center, around for like 60 years, but I guess the time is now.
So what's the public involvement in all this, like the input?
The idea is they get comment and feedback from the public before any decisions are made by folks like Midtown Inc. and the DIA and all of that.
Hurry up, Richard. Just take the paper off.
Richard has got a medal.
Some parents of preschoolers will rejoice, and others may roll their eyes at the news that Peppa Pig is coming to Metro Detroit in a pretty big way. Peppa Pig's World of Play is coming to Great Lakes Crossing. It'll be open sometime in 2019. This is just the third location in the U.S. for the Playscape, with the others being in Dallas and the third in Shanghai, China. It'll have 10 play areas and be operated by Merlin Entertainment.
One of Detroit's best-known artists has a new virtual reality documentary coming out. Marshall from Detroit features, Eminem and some pretty stunning shots of the city. One of them I like particularly is from the roof of the Guardian building. So here's the deal with this. The documentary is a ride through Detroit with Marshall Mathers, and the trailer has journalist and rapper Sway Calloway talking to him. The 21-minute film will debut at Sundance this Saturday. It's part of what they're calling a New Frontier program, and I'll put quotes around that, for films that they say are using virtual reality, augmented reality, and something they're calling mixed reality. The rest of us will be able to see it on Facebook's Oculus Go and Rift VR headsets this February. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Jer, I have still yet to experience virtual reality firsthand. My friend is a big fan. He says I'm missing out.
Daily Detroit is brought to you in part by Bamboo Detroit. With an inclusive community, flexible modern offices, classes, and networking events, Bamboo Detroit helps entrepreneurs and innovative companies launch, land, or expand in Detroit. Bamboo has been honored nationally as a top shared office space in America, featured in ABC's 2020, National Public Radio, Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes, and, finally, honored by the City of Detroit. Become one of their more than 400 members today at bamboodetroit.com.
Looks like Cooper's Hawk, a national restaurant and winery chain, is on track to open up a second location in Michigan. Cooper's Hawk is an upscale casual restaurant that has a full bar, a big wine selection, and what they call a Napa-style tasting room. It's also the name of a medium-sized hawk species commonly found around these parts.
For what it's worth, those are pretty cool-looking birds.
This moment in ornithology brought to you by Daily Detroit. Anyway, the Troy Somerset Gazette says that Troy's Planning Commission has approved a plan to build a new location on Big Beaver between Troy Street and Frankton. The project still needs final approval from the Troy City Council. Cooper's Hawk also operates a restaurant in Clinton Township.
Joining me on the line, Jennifer Crawford, a returning guest to Daily Detroit. Jennifer, how are you today?
I am doing awesome. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. So you have these great events, All Things Detroit. You've done a ton that has impacted kind of the retail community, especially for small businesses and makers in Detroit. But you've got a new venture, a new wing of what you're doing. It's called All Things Ticketing. So why ticketing?
I was thinking about the cost of tickets. So my tickets are a very low cost price point. They're $5 and then they're $15 for I Beat the Crowd. So when you use different services like events, right, there's actually so many fees. And when you're a small business and you have to pay all these fees on top of your ticket cost, it's like you're cutting into your profit. So what I was thinking was, how can I kind of help small businesses with these fees? What can we do? We can create our own third party. And with that, there's no fee kind of per ticket. You just pay a low cost per month. And if you're actually doing free events, then you'll be able to post your actual events for free.
That sounds like a game changer for a lot of folks, because if you accept credit cards and the like, aren't there just like a lot of fees and things that start to tack on one thing or another? And then the bigger you get, it almost seems like the more you're paying.
The bigger you get, the more you're paying. You know what? More money, more problems. But it's so it's so many fees, and it was eating up so much profit. And then also, one of the great things about All Things Ticketing is that you'll be able to sell your products also. So with All Things Detroit, not only will we be able to sell our tickets, but if you want to purchase a All Things Detroit t-shirt or an All Things Detroit mug or something, just say you want to wear your t-shirt to the event, you can purchase it actually online on All Things Ticketing as well.
So what does it take for somebody to get started with this? Because as you mentioned Eventbrite, so I kind of figure this is kind of sitting in a similar space where if you're trying to throw an event, this is a service that can handle those tickets and make all of that happen. So how does one get started with all this?
It's really easy. Only thing you have to do is go to allthingsticketing.com. And once you create an account, we will receive an email, because what's different than us in Eventbrite also is that we don't want just any events on here. We really want to focus on small business. So your events actually have to be approved to actually be on the site. That is one of the things that is different also. So to get started, you just actually go to the website, you actually create an account, and you create your actual event, and then we will receive an email. And once we go through it and look over the information, we will approve it, and you just kind of go from there because you're putting all of your information in.
So, and I find this interesting about approval because there are a lot of events that people will pitch or whatever, and then it's just not really a thing. What about this approval process makes it special? Why did you put that in the line?
My overall goal in my life and in my business is to create platforms for small business. And I want to create exclusive things for us. And so with this, I want this to be exclusive for small businesses. And that's kind of why I put the approval process on it, because we want it to be, just kind of exclusive, like I wouldn't say elite, but I would say, just something for us, something for small business, something that, like, hey, I know that I'm a small business. I can use this because this is catered towards me. It's catered towards like what I need and benefits from me. So it's not for everybody.
Well, focus is important. And after all, especially in business, if you try to be for everyone, what ends up happening is you're for no one because you end up making nobody happy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So where can everybody find this information so that they can sign up and get in touch with you?
You can go to allthingsticketing.com, or you can actually go to my website, askjennifer.com, and you can connect through all of my platforms through there, and that includes All Things Ticketing.
Well, Jennifer, so glad to talk to another Detroit-based business. Thanks for coming by, and look forward to talking to you again.
I look forward to talking to you also. Thanks again. I appreciate you guys.
Well, that'll do it for today's Daily Detroit. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.